Live from the WVUA 23 studios, it's the 2021 Tuscaloosa Mayoral Debate.
And a very pleasant good evening, everyone, and welcome to the mayoral debate leading up to Tuscaloosa's municipal election that's scheduled for Tuesday, March the 2nd. I'm Mike Royer with WVUA 23 Television. We are wearing masks like you are in your place of business and at home, and we're doing that here at WVUA for the debate tonight. However, during the debate, I'll remove my mask. The candidates will too when we get started. They're 10 feet apart. The moderator who will be asking the questions is 20 feet away from the candidates, and the small audience that we have in our studio here at WVUA is separated safely as well. So we want you to know that we're taking every precaution to present our debate tonight in the safest way possible. Our debate tonight is brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Greater Tuscaloosa. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates for office at any level of government. The organization encourages informed and active participation in government and in elections. It works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences through education and advocacy. The candidates tonight appear on camera in alphabetical order from left to right, and the order of the opening statements that they're going to make was determined just before the program began by a drawing in which all candidates were present. Candidates will have 1 minute to have opening statements, 2 minutes to answer every question they're asked during this hour debate, and then 1 minute to summarize and to make closing statements at the end of tonight's debate. Now let's meet the candidates who are in the studio tonight. We want to welcome to the studio Serena Fortenberry. She is a professor of English and literature here at the University of Alabama. Martin Houston is a local pastor and businessman. And Walt Maddox is currently serving his 4th term as mayor of Tuscaloosa. Moderating our debate is Kim Bailey with the League of Women Voters of Greater Tuscaloosa. Kim, it's all yours.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening. The order for opening comments will be Mr. Houston, then Dr. Fortenberry, followed by Mr. Maddox. So, Mr. Houston, in 1 minute, please introduce yourself and briefly state why you think you are uniquely qualified to serve Tuscaloosa as mayor.
Thank you to WVUA and to the League of Women Voters. My name is Martin Houston, and I am so much more than just a football player. And I really want you to understand that qualifications for this office are important. And I'm an individual who has done so many different things and been involved in the community in many different ways. I've been a husband and a father, 31 years to the same lovely woman. I currently serve right now as a businessman and leader at Alabama One Credit Union, and I'm the Senior Director for Membership Growth, where we oversee an $800 million financial institution. I pastor a church which grew during this pandemic, both in members and our surplus. I have a lot more qualifications, and hopefully those will come out as we speak tonight. I've been a volunteer, a pastor, a businessman, and a leader. You have an opportunity to change and raise the bar for Tuscaloosa. Vote Martin Houston for mayor on March 2nd.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Fortenberry?
Thank you so much for hosting us tonight. 16 years ago when he took office, Walt Maddox had several goals. He wanted to make our city safe. He wanted to upgrade infrastructure ahead of development. He wanted to revitalize West Tuscaloosa. He wanted to make City Hall transparent and accessible, and he wanted to diversify our economy. After 16 years, we have the highest paid mayor in the state of Alabama, and we also have high crime, crumbling infrastructure, stagnating West Tuscaloosa, a closed City Hall, and a $500 million gamble on an experience economy. I have the same goals that Walt Maddox had 16 years ago when he took office, but he hasn't achieved them in 16 years. We have high debt, and we have high crime, and we have high taxes. I want a better Tuscaloosa, and I think that my leadership can get us moving in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters and WVUA for hosting this forum. And I want to thank Dr. Fortenberry and Pastor Houston for their willingness to serve. I know what a sacrifice it is for you and your families. Tuscaloosa is my hometown. I was born here, raised here, graduated from Central High School, and now Stephanie and I are raising our families here. This place, you can say, is in my soul, and I feel very fortunate every single day to get to serve something greater than myself, the people of Tuscaloosa. And look what we've accomplished. It's amazing. Thousands of new jobs. Tuscaloosa is safer, and our quality of life has improved. And we did all of this in the shadows of a great recession, a tornado that destroyed parts of our community, and now COVID-19. Moving forward, you and your family and your future, you deserve a proven leader who has delivered real results. I believe I am that leader, and I look forward to sharing with you our plans tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you will have 2 minutes to answer each question. So the first question will start with Dr. Fortenberry. Many residents of Tuscaloosa are facing the devastating financial impact caused by the pandemic. Many businesses, especially small businesses, have had to reduce hours or even close, and some jobs will not return after COVID-19. What steps would you take as mayor to address the loss of jobs, businesses, and income?
First of all, I don't think that it was proper to close our city last spring and summer without having a financial safety net in place for our small businesses and especially for the people who work for those small businesses. So that is a problem that I see that we are now having to contend with the after effects of. In order to go forward, the way that I foresee our economy rebounding is through a diversified economy. And the way that I see us approaching that is through strong partnerships with the county and with the Tuscaloosa Economic Development Authority and with the University of Alabama and with other municipalities in our region. Together, I think that we can recruit a diverse array of businesses into our area. And I'm speaking of research and hard sciences, telecommunications, tech industry, research and development, and corporate headquarters. By cultivating a diversified economy, we are going to be a more resilient economy. One of the driving factors of Elevate Tuscaloosa is drilling down on experience economy. The kind of jobs that experience economy creates are hospitality sorts of jobs, and they are low-level, low-wage jobs that perpetuate poverty in our city. And also, as we've seen during the pandemic, that is an industry that has tanked economically during the pandemic. So I think that spreading ourselves in a different way to recruit different kinds of business concerns into our city is the way that we rebound from this crisis. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Houston.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I think we need to take an approach very similar to what you've heard from Ms. Fortenberry. We need to look at business development, economic development. There's not been a major industry since Mercedes come into the Tuscaloosa region since Mercedes, and thank God for Mercedes and all of the suppliers, but we need to diversify. And when I say diversify, I mean that we need to not just look at different industries, we also need to make sure that we look at some of the resources that we have available here in Tuscaloosa that can help to bring about more jobs. We also need to make sure that we have the 4,000 plus jobs available in Tuscaloosa. We have people who need jobs in Tuscaloosa. We need to make sure that we develop workforce academies to bring the training to those individuals, similar to what Mercedes does with the program they have with Shelton State, because we have some high-paying jobs that can help replace that. So that would be one of the first steps to fill the jobs that we have and get people trained that are out of work. We would also need to look at Research Park. I believe Auburn has shown the ability to grow an economy if you invest in where the economy is going, not going toward experience, especially coming out of COVID. So we need to make sure that we are bringing jobs in for the Research Triangle. We lost a $200+ million project to Auburn. Part of that is because of our education. The other part is that we did not have infrastructure and plans ready to receive those jobs. Then we also need to make sure that we make a more robust transit system to help people be able to expand their job search area and get them back and forth to those jobs. It is without a doubt the responsibility of the city to help grow the economy through business and economic development.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox.
Well, I certainly don't blame my opponents for not wanting to talk about COVID, and we'll have more time to get a chance to delve into some of the economic factors. I love to talk about rapid transit because that's something under Elevate we're going to double in size. But let's talk about COVID for a second. COVID-19, it was a challenge that was unprecedented across this nation. And one thing that I can tell you as serving as mayor is that you're going to face a crisis. And when we faced that crisis, we took it head on at the city of Tuscaloosa. Immediately, we engaged experts, in large part thanks to the University of Alabama and DCH and UAB, to guide our decisions. We activated our incident command on February 28th, ahead of most cities in Alabama. And moving forward, we took actions to protect our community. Our North Star during this entire process was to ensure that DCH had the capacity and ability of not only rooms, PPE, and adequate staffing to protect Tuscaloosa, to take care of our healthcare needs. In the meantime, we knew that there would be people hurting. The first order I gave regarding COVID-19 was to give people the ability to have no late fees or to not cut off water on water bills. We also passed $1.4 million that went to 250 small businesses like Luann Nix at Tumbling Tide or Darren Cross at Pat's Floors to help keep them moving forward. We saved thousands of jobs with that action. And then I think about David Gay at Maud Watley or Dr. Karen Thompson at Tuscaloosa Emergency Services. The city allocated $500,000 to these agencies that were providing amazing benefits to our community. Now moving forward, I think the greatest challenge facing the next mayor comes out of COVID-19. And there's two issues. Number one is the economic, the other is education. Real quick. Number one, we're going to utilize Restart as a blueprint in our first 100 days to help our small businesses. Second, we think summer learning programs that is funded under Elevate can help us not only with the summer learning loss, but the COVID learning loss that's happened.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question, we will start with Mr. Houston. As mayor, you represent 7 districts with unique challenges and opportunities within each. How will you prioritize projects and needs across the city?
Well, first thing, I think we need to return the balance of power between the mayor's office and the city council. I'm a collaborative leader. I believe that you must allow for those who have been sent here by the people to represent them, to have a voice, and that voice to be heard. That would be number one. Number two is continue doing what I'm doing now, going out, talking to the voters, listening to what they have to say, and then prioritizing that, helping them to understand that not everybody and not everyone is going to get everything. And so there will be times when hard decisions have to be made. But what I promise to do is sit down with the voters and give them a seat at the table and sit down with the city council and empower them to be the representative they're called to be and tasked to be. And then together with them, we will develop a plan and we'll prioritize and we'll work and have all of the battles that happen in those meetings. And then we'll come out with a plan that allows us to move forward. One of the most important things, though, I would challenge the people of Tuscaloosa is I look at Tuscaloosa much like I look at my church and everything. It's a body. And if a part of your body is bleeding, you have to use that as part of the priority process. If you do not address where it's bleeding, then eventually the entire body will suffer. The West Side has been bleeding for a long time through a lot of promises and a lot of years. And so I will make sure that we address those needs while also prioritizing the other needs with the help of the city council to move this city from good to great.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox, same question.
Last night was a historic night in Tuscaloosa. The Planning Commission, after numerous meetings, several hundred people attending meetings throughout the community the last year and a half, passed Framework Tuscaloosa. And what Framework does, it sets in place a long-term plan for not just land use and zoning, but also infrastructure, transportation networks. It gives us the blueprint to move forward as a community. We've seen the success of planning with downtown, riverfront, Tuscaloosa Forward, UA plan. We know that the planning that we've put in place can guide us in the future. I'm glad that Pastor Houston brought up West Tuscaloosa. Out of the $570 million worth of capital investments that we've made during my time as mayor, 31% have gone into West Tuscaloosa. Look at McKenzie Court, look at Maud Watley, look at the new MLK, look at the new West Lawn, look at the street improvements on MLK, look at the $32.5 million project that's underway right now with Martin Luther King Jack Warner Parkway. And then we move across North Tuscaloosa, where we're going to have McWright's Ferry Road, again, thanks to a wonderful partnership between the county, city, and our legislative delegation. I think also moving forward, we've got to make certain that we implement Elevate Tuscaloosa. This is our opportunity, knowing that 68% of millennials and Generation Zs, they choose their community before they choose their job. We've got to have rapid transit and workforce transit. We've got to have first quality elite parks and recreation. We've got to make certain that we fulfill the promises that we made. We cannot retreat from this moment because a diversified economy, the knowledge base and technology base, you hear these buzzwords, but there's something deeper to that. You've got to have the intellectual talent that's here at this university, and Stillman want to stay in our community to take advantage of those jobs. So I certainly think those things, among others, is what can keep this entire city moving forward. And lastly, let me say this. One of the challenges of mayor is that you represent a diverse people from diverse geographical areas. During my time as mayor, we have made it work, and we will continue to make it work.
Thank you. Dr. Fortenberry?
Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure. As mayor, you represent 7 districts with unique challenges and opportunities within each. How will you prioritize projects and needs across the city?
Thank you. The first way that I would prioritize projects and needs across the city is doing a comprehensive evaluation of city infrastructure, roads, sewer, and water, because these are essential ways that we deliver services to our citizens. And I think that prioritizing projects after that evaluation and methodically addressing them is very important. Beyond that, I do think that listening to city councilors who are closer than the mayor to their districts and to their constituents is deeply important. But I'm familiar with a lot of the needs throughout our city already. I know that District 4 and District 5 are feeling the pinch of student housing and wanting to cope differently with those pressures. District 3 copes with the problems of extensive residential development that has caused traffic problems, and there has been a lot of anxiety about new planned residential developments. In District 6, residents have been contending with a terrible sewer smell for 20 years now, and it hasn't been addressed, and I think that that's extremely important. District 7 has problems with crime, the need for commercial reinvestment in the McFarland Mall site, which desperately needs reinvestment. And then in District 1, where I live, and in District 2, the city spent $417,000 2 years ago to create a plan for West Tuscaloosa, and that plan then inexplicably became a study, and all of the recommendations that were in it were sort of shelved, and what of those recommendations made it into the framework plan are very short and very broad and very vague. And my feeling about the framework plan in general, I sat on the steering committee for this planning, is that the plan itself is quite vague, quite general, and quite broad in its scope, and it doesn't deliver the specifics that the citizens of Tuscaloosa really need. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Maddox, we'll start with you on this next question. Many parts of the nation are reviewing how law enforcement should function. How, as mayor, would you address this issue in the city of Tuscaloosa? What programs would you suggest and or prioritize?
Following the death of George Floyd, we all had to take a deeper look. I did too. This summer, I met with more than 6 community leaders, mostly from West Tuscaloosa, to talk about building trust with the community, many in our underserved areas, and rebuilding trust with police. From there, we've created Project Unity. 52 stakeholders across our community serve on 2 commissions. One is the Chief's Commission on Policing, and the second is the Mayor's Alliance for Opportunity and Advancement. As part of that, we've already acted. Not only did we listen and we learned, but we acted. We've passed an unbiased policing policy. We've eliminated chokeholds. We have also required every police officer, if they see someone in custody being abused, they must report those actions. We've also moved forward with a rapid response team as it relates to crime. We're going to put more lighting and cameras into areas of our city that need it. On the other side, though, is dealing with the root causes of crime. See, policing is just treating the symptoms. What we've got to go after is that disease, and that disease is lack of educational opportunities, lack of economic opportunities, and housing. Just for example, what Dr. Fortenberry mentioned with the West Tuscaloosa study. As part of that, we identified 305 properties that were blighted. Today, we've cleared 105 of those properties. We want to take that, Dr. Fortenberry, and do more of it across the city. And whether it's economics or housing, we're taking the best and brightest in this community. And their recommendations will be to us by the end of May. But know this, is that not only did we listen, not only did we learn, we are acting. And I believe part of that acting will be a new Benjamin Barnes branch YMCA in West Tuscaloosa. Because one of the things that was consistent in nearly every single meeting we had was the lack of recreational opportunities for our youth. This, among others, with Project Unity, I think can be transformative for our community.
Thank you. Dr. Fortenberry?
Yes, thank you. The way that crime, from my view, has been handled in the city of Tuscaloosa is in a reactionary way. This happened last summer when the police chief wanted to get window tint checkers so that was a way to get into people's cars with a presumption of assumed guilt for people. Most recently, the city elected to buy a bunch of properties in University Manor as a way to contend with crime. But there was no plan there other than condemning the properties. Why would the city buy property in order to reduce crime? This isn't sustainable. The city can't buy every property in the city where crime is occurring. So there just seems to me to be no plan. Instead, we have some committees that are spinning their wheels and meeting for well over 9 months before they ever make recommendations in May. From my point of view, there has to be an integrated and planned approach. Part of that regards our police force. We have pension problems and we have pay problems within our police force, and we don't retain and we don't recruit well. Robust educational initiatives is what we need, because that helps people out of poverty. Poverty leads to desperation. Desperation leads to hopelessness, and hopelessness leads to crime. We need stronger urban planning. I was speaking to the Home Builders Association yesterday about how to plan neighborhoods to prevent crime from happening within those neighborhoods. We need real community policing, and especially in the university area, but throughout the city, we should be incorporating CEPTED principles into our streetscapes in order to improve safety for our students, but also for our citizens throughout the city. Thank you.
Thanks. And Mr. Houston?
Thank you. And on some of those points, I totally agree with Ms. Fortenberry. And I want to point out that there was a lot of money spent on West Side, but just because you spend money doesn't mean you solve the problem, and the West Side still is bleeding, in my opinion. And part of what we need to do is hit crime head on, but you have to identify why is crime happening. And statistically in 2019, robberies and auto thefts were up. A lot of these were juvenile crimes. So one of the things we need to immediately do is get our young people engaged and involved. Poverty begets crime. Let's just face it. A lot of times people who are committing these crimes are in poverty. But here are some of the steps I would take. First of all, I'm going to come alongside the police and allow them to do their job, but they will always know that the mayor fully supports them. I will continue to recruit, train, honor, and lift up the police officers, the public servants who protect and serve. I will bolster the mental health unit that the mayor has started, and I will make sure that all our other officers are competently trained. There's a report that potentially 1,000 mental health calls will go out, and we need to make sure we're prepared to handle that. I'll challenge the community to get involved. It's not enough to have police officers there. The community has to meet them. So there needs to be relationships rebuilt. There needs to be trust reestablished. We need to understand that they are an asset to our community and not adversaries to our community. We should go about doing lighting to make areas safer and provide clearer access for our people. Most of all, I will equip the police and all those who serve, not just police, the entire system, to make sure that they have the resources they need to provide safe and secure communities.
Great, thank you. Dr. Fortenberry, we'll start with you on this question. Tuscaloosa's economy benefits from its attractions, such as the University of Alabama and Stillman College, and other features, making us a destination city. How can the city balance the interests of long-term residents with such issues and the proliferation of short-term rentals, hotels, and student apartments while simultaneously attracting business and tourists to Tuscaloosa?
That's a tough question and a thorny one. I think that boils down to strong urban planning again. The student apartment problem has been going on. We've been beleaguered by this for years. 8 years, I think, is when the Student Rental Housing Task Force was appointed. And we've enacted a series of policies that have actually done us more harm than they've done good. One of those was creating the box, but not creating regulations that regulated or delimited student housing developments outside of the box. So we had the box that was for student housing, but then we had student housing still popping up all over town. We had the bonus height provision. The bonus height provision was passed to allow developers who gathered an acre of land inside of the box to build to a bonus height. And that is how we got mega complexes right in this area where we are standing. At the same time, we've had a problem with plexes. The triplexes and the quadplexes have proliferated and have actually gutted a lot of workforce housing within our city, replacing entire neighborhoods, especially in the 15th Street and Hackberry Lane area. And then we've also had the impact fee problems, which our current mayor called a backdoor tax when they were first proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Our impact fees are low, and they don't offset the infrastructure problems that the student housing creates. In terms of the short-term rentals, we have a problem in that there is no grounds for denial, really, for our Zoning Board of Adjustment. So that's a different problem. Strong planning and integrated planning instead of piecemeal ordinances is the way to go forward to balance our long-term residents and our short-term residents within the city.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure, it was a long one, I know. Tuscaloosa's economy benefits from its attractions, such as the University of Alabama and Stillman College, and other features, making us a destination city. How can the city balance the interests of long-term residents with such issues and the proliferation of short-term rentals, hotels, and student apartments while simultaneously attracting business and tourists to Tuscaloosa? Whew.
Thank you. Once again, the first thing you need to do anytime you're leading is listen. And of course, my candidates have 16 years and has been in City Hall with great effect for 3-4+ years. I think you still need to listen because the problem is changing. I think we need to look at where we are as a city, understand that the university is important to us. It's a major part of what we want to do as a city and how we want to grow. However, we need to make sure that the residents that are directly impacted and indirectly impacted. For instance, I spoke to a restaurant owner who said, you know, it's great to have all those games, but it actually hurts my restaurant. So we need to go out and listen to people and find out what's the problem, what's the issues, what's the challenges, what are those challenges, and then systematically lay them out. We have heard the mayor say numerous times, planning, projects. Planning is great. But if you don't stick to the plan it does not matter. And I believe that's where you have to, once you get that plan, make sure you stick to that plan. And then as far as recruiting new businesses, I think our biggest challenge in this city is educational excellence. We are struggling as a school system as a whole. We have a third of our city where most people move to when they come to Tuscaloosa with high-paying jobs, and we have residents that are in other parts of the area that do not feel they get the same level of education, and that is translated or communicated to the businesses we're recruiting. So we also have to address that and then just go out and be aggressive with the recruitment and expect to be the best, go after the best, and then deliver the best.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox.
Well, I think one of the differences that you see emerging, even in the few minutes we've been together, is there's one thing to be the critic. It's the next thing to be in the arena. And since 2013, I've been in the arena as it refers to student apartments and the proliferation of them. In 2013, we passed a resolution that we would no longer rezone for apartments more than 200 beds. Unfortunately, the council ultimately decides those rezonings, hasn't necessarily abided by it. In 2017, we passed an impact fee for water and sewer. Although our administration proposed more, it was a start, and since that time, $2.3 million has gone into the Water and Sewer Fund. In 2019 and 2020, we passed a moratorium, which helped us slow down the additional growth, even though we were threatened with litigation by out-of-town developers. In 2020, we eliminated the bonus height provision. And this year, we also defined student housing, which I think is going to not only help us in the student housing, but also in housing in general. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about workforce housing in a little bit. And we also established density caps as well that will go a long way towards tackling the issue of the proliferation of student apartments. If you're like Stephanie and I, there's just too many in our community, and it's got to stop. And unfortunately, the market forces that would normally guide something have been destroyed by REITs, but time doesn't allow us to go into that either. Let me briefly talk about the university. It is our greatest opportunity and certainly our best economic driver. Our goal is to build a community where Taylor and Eli can grow up in. And if they choose to, they can live here, start a business here, and raise their family here. I believe that research and development is going to be the next frontier for us because something has happened over the last 3 years. Dr. Bell and the Chancellor have defined research areas that the university is going to focus in. And in that lays our opportunity to take Tuscaloosa's economy to the next level. And I hope to get more opportunity later on to discuss that with you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Houston, we'll start with you on this question. A lot of speculation has been made about the financial backing received from interested parties such as developers and others with a business interest in Tuscaloosa's future. Please provide details about the financing of your campaign, including a listing of your largest donors, maybe top 3. If PACs are included, then your connection and its stated purpose.
Well, first of all, this is my first time getting into the political arena, and there have been rumors said, and the mayor himself has made this statement that this is about him and Stan Pate. That is disrespectful to myself and Ms. Fortenberry. We're qualified candidates, and this is the first time you've had a challenge. That's number one. Number two, there's not an individual, there's not a business or anyone who has enough money, as he said earlier, to make me get into this with my family and all that comes with it. Number three is that I have taken the exact same approach that I take to pastoring my church. I've been a pastor going back to 1999. I have never seen anyone's tithe or gift. So if you ask me who's my biggest donor, I don't know. You know why I don't know, and I don't want to know? Because I wasn't for sale before I got in the race. I'm not for sale now, and never will I be for sale. Those people who give, whether it's someone who can give a penny, $1, or $1,000 or $10,000, they get one vote, and they get a seat at the table. And that's what they get with me, and that's what they'll get today, tomorrow, and into the future. So even though there's been a lot of questions about that, I want Tuscaloosa to hear me and hear me well. I am running for mayor because I believe Tuscaloosa has the potential to be a really great city. With the right leadership, we can move from good to great. 16 years 16 years. And now we're going to do this and this. It's time for change. I believe I represent that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox.
Well, my largest donor is Local 403 of the Tuscaloosa Firefighters Association, and I am proud to have the support of our local firefighters. I've been blessed to have their support ever since I've run for City Council. And the reason why I'm proud is I think about my family. If something were to happen to me or Stephanie or Taylor or Eli, I know with just a few minutes of a phone call that our firefighters are going to be there for us. They're some of the most well-trained, most dedicated, and talented individuals I've ever had the opportunity to work with. One of the blessings of this job is I get to work closely with so many heroes. And so I'm proud to have their support. It's an honor for me to have their support because I know exactly what it means. They want the best out of me as we expect the best out of them for our community.
Thank you. Dr. Fortenberry?
Yes. Compared to my opponents, I have my campaign finances are pretty shoestring, and that reflects a lot on why I'm running. I'm not running because anybody asked me to. Nobody called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Serena Fortenberry, why don't you run for mayor?" My husband tried really hard to talk me out of running for mayor. And my donations really reflect who I am and why I'm running. I've gotten a couple of PAC donations, but nothing compared to what my opponents have received through PACs. My biggest donor right now is a home builder who builds workforce housing in Tuscaloosa and in the county. I got some money from a bar owner who has been upset with the arbitrary and capricious closures of bars in town. And so the rest of my donors are by and large individuals, and they're people who don't mind having their names attached to their support for me. And I'm very proud of that because I really am a candidate who represents the people of Tuscaloosa. I don't represent big business. I don't represent political interest. I represent ordinary people who are dissatisfied with the way that their city is being managed currently.
Thank you. All right, the next question, we'll start with Mr. Maddox. So we've already talked a little bit about framework and that plan. So once this document is complete, and Mr. Maddox, you mentioned that it had been voted on. So how would you enforce its integrity? What role does the mayor have in limiting the use of variances and waivers for new zoning ordinances?
Well, I think first, if you listen to our opponents tonight, you wouldn't know you were in Tuscaloosa. Look how we've transformed downtown in the riverfront. Look at 311, which is one of the most utilized city services we have. Look at our recovery from April 27, 2011. Look how we took on COVID-19. And we did, Dr. Fortenberry, have to make some very difficult decisions. But if you're faced with the university closing and thousands of people being unemployed who wouldn't be able to make their mortgage payment, those are hard decisions. Those are decisions a mayor face. It's easy to be the critic. It's another thing to stand in the arena. And for 16 years, I've stood in the arena of being mayor. And I've taken on the challenges of a Great Recession, a tornado that destroyed 12.5% of our city, and now COVID-19. And when you look at our planning accomplishments, it makes me very proud to work for this place. Look at our Riverwalk Master Plan today, and we're about to expand 1.75 miles on the western side, and we've just broke ground on the northern Riverwalk. The Western Tuscaloosa Inventory Study we just referenced, it is already tackling blight in West Tuscaloosa. The infrastructure elements are included in the framework, and our goal is to get those budgeted in the next fiscal year. And we look at the university area neighborhood plans. Think about where 13th Street was in 2005 and 2006, and look at it today. And certainly our greater Tuscaloosa plan, when we think about what downtown was when we inherited the office and where it is today. We have shown that planning works. And Elevate Tuscaloosa is our plan to take Tuscaloosa to the next level. Framework is our plan for infrastructure, housing, transportation, community amenities moving forward. And we will certainly use the weight of our office to continue to make certain it is enforced. Again, we have shown at the City of Tuscaloosa the ability to deliver over 16 years. And that's not going to stop in the next 4 years if I'm reelected. Thank you.
Dr. Fortenberry?
Thank you. Since framework has now been passed, there's a new phase of planning that is going to take place, and that will happen through the appointment of a technical advisory committee, and that committee will then oversee a rewrite of our city's zoning codes. What framework is pulling our city toward is a modernized version of zoning codes that are form-based zoning codes. Currently in Tuscaloosa, we have use-based zoning codes. What will come out of framework will be some hybrid of that. There is great potential in form-based zoning codes to plan our city better and to make sure that the text that we see in the framework plan really plays out in our zoning ordinances. Our zoning ordinances are then going to be understood and applied by our various boards, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Zoning Board of Adjustments particularly, and then also City Council. If I am mayor, this is what I think must happen in order to protect the plan and to make the plan work and function for the people. Our Planning and Zoning Commission currently has members who have conflicts of interest who sit on it. I don't think that this is healthy for our city, and I think that in those appointments we have a commission that is not always oriented toward the people that they serve, and that is the public. So I think that changing the composition of those boards who understand and apply the codes and make sure that petitions that come before them comply is very important. And for me, I would be emphasizing to all of the people who serve in various capacities that we serve the public, not ourselves in City Hall.
Thank you. Mr. Houston.
First of all, I said at the beginning that Tuscaloosa is a good city and not a bad city, but I want to move it from good to great. And so I do want to applaud the mayor on what he's done in terms of framework and getting it there. But as I have gotten deeper and more involved, what I see is plan, project, committee, and then not necessarily following the plan. So step number one would be that look at the framework and then get together with all of the parties involved with implementing that plan and framework and making sure that we stick to the plan that's before us. And as we do that, of course, it requires teamwork, it requires leadership, and we also need to make sure that there's transparency when there is a change, because change is a part of life, and change will happen. You just need to make sure that the master plan, we refer to as framework, covers a couple things. It needs to have land use, when, where, and how we grow and how we plan to grow. What are the choke points? What are the saturation points? You need to make sure that all of that is incorporated into it. What's the plan for economic development as a whole? And the mayor mentioned infrastructure and planning. Well, we have a $300 million water and sewer improvement project that is on our doorstep. We've already borrowed $114 million of SRF loans to handle our maintenance right now. And so when we look at those projects, those things are coming. It's like borrowing money, living your life, kicking the can down the road so that your children will have to pay for the life you lived. And that's where we are right now. And we're going to have some hard, tough decisions. But I will make sure that we stick to the plan and use the team that is there and make changes to that team as required and needed.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Fortenberry, we'll start with you. Some of the brightest and best students are leaving our colleges and universities for opportunities outside of this community. What would be your plans to create knowledge-based jobs in Tuscaloosa? How can the Alabama Innovation Commission, which is chaired by State Representative Bill Poole, assist in your efforts?
Okay. Well, in Tuscaloosa, we have several federal opportunity zones that offer tax incentives to people who will invest in communities that are in need of investment. And Bill Poole has also passed or helped to pass legislation in the state to also add incentives at the state level for investments in opportunity zones. So I think that Tuscaloosa is not currently promoting that aspect of our community community. I also think, and I think I've already said this, but I'm going to backtrack again, strong partnerships between the city and the county and local municipalities and the university and Stillman College and Shelton. This is the path forward. If we don't work together with other people, if we are going to be just the city of Tuscaloosa out on a limb working alone, we're not going to move forward. We really have a region that's attached to our city, and we anchor that region. So working with our community partners is the way that we are going to be able to diversify our economy and recruit those kinds of jobs. Another aspect of this, and I think that this is hugely important, is we don't have commercial air service in Tuscaloosa, and getting commercial air service in Tuscaloosa will be a game changer in terms of how we can recruit new industries and jobs here. And it's a tough question right now just because the airline industry isn't doing well. But the Golden Triangle Regional Airport is 80 miles away in Mississippi, and they have commercial service. And so I think really focusing on working toward commercial air service in Tuscaloosa is going to be huge for our city and its growth.
Thank you. Mr. Houston?
Thank you. First of all, we need to realize what we have on our doorstep as a city. We have gone through one of the largest growth opportunities any college anywhere has faced, and this is an opportunity for us to grow our city, grow our tax base, and keep these young minds here. First of all, you need to figure out what is it or what are the main focuses of Tuscaloosa, Stillman, and Shelton, the graduates that they are producing that also translate to great industry for your community. Then you actively go out and begin to recruit those businesses. But here's the key. As you recruit, you have to also prepare and build infrastructure. I think about Nick Saban recruiting Julio Jones while building facility to become a great university. He did both and I do not think that we do a great job of planning where we want to grow. Ms. Fortenberry did mention the airport, and I would say the commercial is a piece of that. But I also think, back to the point about getting college students to stay and live in Tuscaloosa, is getting those, I call them sexy companies, the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world. If we increase our cargo ability at the airport, I believe it gives us the opportunity to improve our industrial park. And as we improve our industrial park, we're able to go to Google, Amazon, and say, hey, here's a great place. We are the gateway to West Alabama and into Mississippi all the way down to Mobile. And if you'll come to our city, we can help you get to all of those clients. So that would just be one way to do it. And then also make sure that we don't forget about our small businesses and the ideas that we can help them generate in creating new opportunities by incentivizing them.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox.
Well, I think there's some opportunities that are coming Tuscaloosa's way, and we're going to be ready to take advantage of them. First is what Mercedes-Benz is doing. Do you know that 2 of the 8 board members of Daimler, including Ola Kalenius, who is CEO of Daimler, lived in Tuscaloosa for more than 10 years, had children born here? Also, Mercedes is leading the way when it comes to electric vehicles, EV technology, and also autonomous vehicles. About a year ago, Judge Robertson and myself and the governor met with Ola and his team in Stuttgart, and we talked about what the future could be for Mercedes North America in this regard. There is a lot of things happening on this front, and I think our community is going to be pleased with that moving forward. The second thing that's happened is you can't have research and development until you have an institution of higher education that is squarely focused on those things, such as now thanks to our Chancellor and Dr. Bell, we now have Alabama Transportation Institute, Water Resource Center, cyber technology. Those will be the next frontier of bringing the private sector around them. But lastly, let me talk about creating the workforce of the future. I'm the only candidate that has stood in support of Elevate Tuscaloosa to help us keep those college graduates here in our community. I hear talk about the airport, but without Elevate Tuscaloosa, we wouldn't be doing the runway improvements that will allow us to land those cargo planes in Tuscaloosa. We wouldn't have a plan to upgrade our airport to meet future commercial needs. We wouldn't have rapid transit that will be coming our way by 2025. If you don't have Elevate, then you don't have those improvements. And so, again, the difference between the candidates and I is that I am more than willing to be bold. I am more than willing to put my plan. I am more than willing to give you specifics because you deserve those specifics. You deserve to be told honestly what we can do and what we can do and how we're going to do it. That's the commitment I've made to you for 16 years, and that's a commitment if you re-elect me. I look forward to continuing as we diversify our economy.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about and around Elevate. So let's focus in on it a little bit. It was passed in 2019. It included pre-K expansion, airport, commercial service, as you've mentioned, and a convention center, among other projects. Do you support continuing these projects as planned? If not, what would change? And Mr. Houston?
Well, first of all, let me clarify with the mayor. I never said I did not support the projects of Elevate. Now, I do have questions and great concerns about the $60 million experience venue as far as the city driving that. As far as Elevate itself goes, I believe that there are some really good projects in Elevate. I believe that there are things in Elevate that will help us move forward. But my concern with Elevate is that it's not delivering as it was stated. We have been told that this is what's going to come in. Last year, we got a $60 million bond to fund Elevate, 16.5 for parks. That's where I have a problem with Elevate, is the prioritization of what you're doing for the city. Why would the city in a pandemic go out and borrow that type of money? And 38.8 million of 36.6 million of that was used for roads. I understand that, but we were told that the Elevate tax would fund that. Now, I understand that there was funds moved, there was some level funding that happened in the budget, and Elevate lent money. None of those things matter as far as this is what Elevate was said it was going to do. This is what Elevate has done. I do not, once again, have a problem with some of the projects in Elevate. I believe there are projects within Elevate. You've heard me mention the robust and expanded transit system, the river walks. Those things have value. The question is back to planning and prioritization, and who is going to be a visionary, proactive leader, not just reactionary, and who will make the tough decisions, even when it means giving up your baby for the betterment of the people.
Thank you. Mr. Maddox.
Well, as mayor, facts have to matter. First of all, the bond issue was not a $60 million bond issue for Elevate. $38.5 million came from the Tuscaloosa County Road Improvement Commission as part of House Bill 600. But you said it was Elevate. Well, facts still have to matter. $38.5 million for the Martin Luther King Jack Warner Parkway project, one of the 7 designated projects from House Bill 600. And when we created Elevate, one of the unique features is it's made up of 40 people from around Tuscaloosa, including many business leaders. This summer, as we were looking at the market and we talked to people about who have expertise in both construction and financing, they advised the city that the time was now to move. I know that many people watching this at home remortgaged or refinanced their mortgage because you saw historically low rates. We saw the same thing at Tuscaloosa. And guess the project that, the $38.5 million project, the first phase of that came in $600,000 under bid. That's going to help us go a long, long way. But let's talk about what happens if we eliminate Elevate Tuscaloosa. First of all, every citizen of Tuscaloosa that has garbage, residential garbage, which is 97%, saw a $200 plus discount in their garbage bill. That goes away. Pre-K goes away. Summer learning goes away. 233 dual enrollment scholarships for seniors in Tuscaloosa City Schools goes away. Rapid transit goes away. And also 7.5% for police and fire goes away. It's easy to be critical of Elevate. It's easy to say that I'm not in favor of it because it makes for good political talking points. But 5 years from now, if we didn't prepare this community for an experience-based economy, which is more than tourism, that's about that knowledge and technology base, we wouldn't have been serving you well or effectively. You know, John Adams said facts are stubborn things, and those are the facts as it relates to Elevate Tuscaloosa.
Thank you. Dr. Fortenberry?
I'm going to criticize Elevate. Elevate Tuscaloosa raised our taxes without a referendum, based on a few presentations that were nothing resembling a plan that had data support and that educated the public as to the particular returns that we would gain as a community from the capital projects, not in terms of quality of life and not in terms of revenues for our city, which is how the plan was initially presented, as a revenue generating plan. Instead, what this plan is doing is, on the most recent Elevate sheets that I can find, there are now 5 scheduled bond issues associated with Elevate. I think that's from budgets in May. So we are going to borrow heavily against this income in order to complete capital projects. The first 3 capital projects that have been borrowed for, the Northern River Walk, the Western River Walk, and the River District Park, and those are each about $5 million projects. Elevate generates $20 million of revenues per year. We should be cash flowing those projects. Instead, what's happening with the Elevate revenues is that they are being disseminated from that fund into the general fund quite a bit. The Elevate revenues are paying an incentives package for the shops at Legacy Park right now, which existed before Elevate was ever created. It is paying for public safety. It is currently paying for paving roads, which is general fund sort of expenses. Elevate, to me, looks like a slush fund, and you can spend it any way you want because you can keep borrowing in order to do the projects that you want to do. If I'm elected, I will put Elevate right back in front of our city council, and I will ask them to rescind this tax. It's a hurtful tax. It hurts our city's poorest. Our city's poorest who live in subsidized housing, they don't get that garbage waiver. They don't get anything. They're paying for my garbage waiver. So, yeah.
All right, this will be our last question, and we will start with Mr. Maddox. Tuscaloosa's real estate market continues to thrive. How would you balance the need to encourage this growth and development while addressing the various serious infrastructure issues of sewers, water, traffic, and schools?
Well, first, let me just again go back to Elevate. What Dr. Fortenberry didn't tell you is that she is going to eliminate Elevate, and your garbage bill is going to go up $216 a year. You're not going to have airport improvements. Fire and police are going to lose $1.1 million. The river walks will go away, and you will be poorer for it, and you'll be paying more garbage rates, and you won't have a plan for Tuscaloosa to be ready in the future. As it relates to housing, there's 2 things that we need to begin thinking about. Number 1 is the extension of our sewer lines, both in North Tuscaloosa and also in East Tuscaloosa. Both extensions of those sewer lines will give us the ability to be able to create more of a housing market. Second, the recent work that's been done through Framework, plus the amendments that we've made in terms of looking at student apartments, will certainly help us in terms of creating more accessible housing for our workforce. Third, we've got to continue to implement House Bill 600. We haven't had an opportunity to talk about that tonight, but as a community, we came together and passed the Transforming Tuscaloosa County legislation. We're going to see McWright's Ferry Road in North Tuscaloosa. We've got MLK Jack Warner Parkway right now that's under construction. Improvements to Highway 69, improvements to Highway 82, including an additional lane on Woolsey-Fennell Bridge. It's also important to note that when those 7 designated projects are complete, it's time to go back to the drawing board. That's going to give us $250 million over the next 7 to 10 years to invest in infrastructure alone that will help continue the housing growth and the economic growth of Tuscaloosa. Again, that gets back to proper planning. That gets back to taking the principles that we have and making them work, and working across not only party lines, because House Bill 600 was both supported by both sides, but the county and the city of Northport. That's what we've been doing for 16 years, and that's going to be the approach we're going to continue to take moving forward.
Fortenberry?
Thank you. In order to support residential housing, that was the question, right? Will you repeat the question?
I will, yes. Tuscaloosa's real estate market continues to thrive. How would you balance the need to encourage this growth and development while addressing the very serious infrastructure issues of sewers, water, traffic, and schools.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Yes. So in order to, we have a seller's market in Tuscaloosa, which I know well because my husband is a realtor. And so as far as our infrastructure, systematic methodology and prioritizing and upgrading our infrastructure to support development and really to limit the pollution that it is creating currently. Within the core of the city, where residential development and redevelopment is lagging, I would like to see the city partner with home builders and work toward tax abatements or incentives in order to create that missing piece that people love to talk about called workforce housing. I think that in terms of our city schools, our city has a role as a vocal supporter for our city schools, but also a strong financial supporter for schools. Since schools drive housing markets to a large degree and they make a city desirable, having a top-notch school system is important, and our city loses residents to the county and to cities around Birmingham because of their school systems. So I think that we have to do better there. I do agree with Mr. Maddox that our sewer lines need to be expanded in East Tuscaloosa and north of the river around the lake. I disagree with the legislative agenda that the council has voted to support this year, which would give the city of Tuscaloosa super zoning authority around the lake. I very much fear that that would equal reduced lake protections, and this is our drinking water source, and that goes back to our infrastructure. This is an essential city service, and if we create too high of density around the lake, we are going to threaten that ecology that gives us clean drinking water.
Mr. Houston.
Thank you. Back to Elevate, and the mayor said that that number and figure that I gave, I got that number directly from speaking with people who work within the city, and he said he talked about the 38, but he did not mention the 16.5 million for parks during a pandemic. We do need to do a better job of planning for infrastructure. The thing that we have got to do is also plan for the maintenance. We have done a great job of growing our city in certain areas and not so much in others, and we now have several projects, according to individuals that work within the city, that are going to be nightmares in terms of replacement. We've already seen it, one in the mayor's home district where we're having to reline pipes. That is a concern. But as far as proactively, we need to change our policy in East Tuscaloosa, up Buttermilk Road, and begin to figure out a way to work with the water authorities there as we move in that direction toward Mercedes and make that a very viable place, an attractive place for people to live and be a part of our city. We need to also make sure that as we're doing that, I do believe that educational excellence, one of the things I stated at the beginning of this program, we need to be a top 5 school district. Industries are going to other places. Individuals are not only moving out of Tuscaloosa, we cannot even add up how many people don't come here because they add to the school system. They look at the school system. So I want to make sure that we have educational excellence. And then attainable housing in all parts of our community. We have to increase the inventory and the access and incentivize that access so that people can get the down payment to get into those homes that they're currently paying higher rent for already.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we'll move to our 1-minute closing comments, and the order will be in reverse. So we'll do Mr. Maddox, Dr. Fortenberry, and then Mr. Houston. So, Mr. Maddox.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that made tonight possible. When you're in the arena, results matter. And together, we've made education a priority. We've reversed generations of neglect in West Tuscaloosa. We've transformed the downtown and the riverfront. We've implemented 311, and we've also achieved the elite AAA rating when it comes to financial matters. Our work is not measured in progress and promises. Our work is a result of tangible things that you can see and feel and touch throughout our community. We also know that that a crisis is going to confront every mayor. And the crisis in front of us is COVID-19 and the economic and educational impacts. This is where tested and proven matters. I will never forget the days following April 27th, meeting with families who had suffered from imaginable losses and the number of issues compounding at one time. We didn't fail Tuscaloosa then, and in this unprecedented hour, we will not fail you now. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thank you. Dr. Fortenberry?
Thank you. A former city councilor told me a few weeks ago, he said, serving one term in public office is great, and serving 2 terms is good. He said serving 3 terms is very questionable, and serving 4 terms is detrimental. Our current mayor has served 16 years as the mayor of Tuscaloosa, and he's chasing 4 more. He refers to himself publicly as a politician. I'm not a politician. I don't want to be a professional politician. That's not my agenda, and that's certainly not my goal. I'm just a regular person, and what I have done for the past 5 or 6 years of my life is, between having a career, having children, having a husband, and doing the volunteer work that I do within the community, I've given a good portion of my time to combing every agenda that comes across my desktop via email from the City Hall. I look at council committee agendas, I look at everything, and I'm researched and I've done my homework.
Thank you. Mr. Houston?
Thank you. 16 years is enough. It's time for a change. I believe without a shadow of a doubt that you hold that power in your hands. I want to leave you asking just a couple of questions. What is better for you? How have things changed? How have things improved? And then ask yourself, do you want a leader who touts how they have reacted to a recession, reacted to a tornado, or reacted to COVID? You need a leader post-COVID that's proactive and visionary and can inspire you and others to be your best. I am a proven leader. 27 plus years I've led and started and wrote paychecks and went without paychecks as a business owner and as a man who have sacrificed and led my family. I am a competitor, I am a champion, and I'm an overcomer, and I can lead this city from good to great. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Greater Tuscaloosa, I want to thank the candidates for their participation this evening. It's been a lively and great discussion. Back to you, Mike.
Kim, thanks very much. Excellent questions. Thanks to you and to the League of Women Voters. And we want to thank our candidates tonight as well. They were all well prepared. They were all passionate with their beliefs. And I enjoyed listening to all of you. Thank you, all 3 candidates, and the best of luck to you. Our thanks again to the League of Women Voters for helping to organize this, the League of Women Voters of the Tuscaloosa area, for their valuable assistance in presenting this forum. The Tuscaloosa municipal election is going to be held on Tuesday, March the 2nd. Be sure and exercise your right to vote and watch for complete coverage leading up to and on Election Day here on WVUA 23. I'm Mike Royer. Thanks for watching and have a great evening, everybody. Good night.